Hello, everyone. Hi, Meredith. Hi. There's Jordan McConnell and Pamela. Very good. The trees and animals turn inward. We turn inward to warmth and quiet and company, like that. The maple, apricot, and persimmon. Rather raggedy persimmon leaves here. Maple, apricot, and persimmon gradually shed their leaves in many shades of yellow and green. We don't have to decorate the inner life. Simple is good. Simple is the greatest richness. So here we are, sitting down together. Linji said, I'm just someone with nothing to do. Here we are, sitting down with nothing to do. And what a nice thing to be sitting together. Nothing to do. So we went to, some of us, a whole bunch of us went to Santa Fe and then to Taos to hold a retreat. And the desert, the high desert is incredibly dry. It's, an historic drought, and it's dry anyway, but super dry. And the pale colors of the ruined hills. So it's quite splendid in its own alarming way, beautiful way. And we had many friends from Santa Fe who, accompanied us there. So it was a nice thing. And all the Pueblo-style architecture, which just one of those ancient forms of making buildings. It still works. Round logs with a ceiling on top of them. So it was a fine thing. And then when I came back, I've been doing, we have I don't know why, but we have transmission ceremonies, which mean that the Dharma is getting handed on to somebody who's, one of the Song dynasty said, and this curse passes to your descendants. You have to carry the burden yourself, which is kind of funny. So, and one of the things we do is do a scroll with a picture of a dragon on it, a dragon calligraphy, and big long piece of silk, things like that. And so there's something a bit nerve-wracking about doing that dragon every time. I don't do it very often because it's a fairly rare ceremony. And so I spent, I don't know, a couple of days wrecking bits of paper, practicing, and then doing it on pieces of silk. So that was sort of rather pure thing. You have to walk into another dimension in order to do that calligraphy. So there we are. And that's what I've been up to. And Alison, I call Alison and she says, that one. So it's kind of nice. And then she says, hang on, I'll send it to Tess. And Tess says, that one, which turns out to be the same one. It's kind of sweet. So yeah, so here we are. And I've been thinking of the simplicity of things. Peace is here now. It's never something, the Dharma is never something that's ahead of us or even behind us. It's like this moment, this moment. Even if I were dying, it would still be this moment. And so, there's a lot of things. We're still close enough to Thanksgiving to muse a little bit about gratitude And there's something about when you're in this moment, maybe that sense of spaciousness and awe I get when I'm not doing anything. I'm just here in the universe, when the universe is coming to me. And, excuse me, and in a way flooding me. So that there's a kind of shyness about it, really, that, this feeling of vulnerability of just being alive and being here. And the ancient Chinese, sort of the whole waking up thing is intimacy. They call it intimacy. So a little while ago, I wrote something about travel and the thusness of being here in the midst of travel, because something we do at this time of year a lot. And I thought it'd be kind of fun, to take that up again. Or somebody suggested I take this up again. So in this case, I'm at SFO, and then suddenly there's a text on my phone that says, United Flight UA 6287 to Santa Barbara is delayed due to air traffic control. This time, even though everybody did their best to delay everything, we weren't delayed at all when we were flying in for our retreat at Taos. And then the departure estimate was pushed back from time to time. We were moved from one gate to another, and then to another. The attendant at gate 24 was a tall, pale man with the aquiline nose of my Scottish grandfather and an air of disdain achieved through discipline and long practice with customers. He didn't respond to queries about whether this was indeed the right gate, whether the plane had arrived, would arrive, what our ETA would be, or why the plane hadn't arrived. It was as if the questions had not been spoken. A story circulated among the restless passengers about a couple from Alabama who'd been waiting since yesterday for a hop to Monterey. That's Monterey, California. It's like you could get a skateboard and go to Monterey. They'd finally boarded their small plane, and there it was, sitting on the runway, as it had been for half an hour. A man came into sight carrying a nice, though well-worn, tan briefcase. He had a barely visible limp, which might have been fatigue or the briefcase, or something sort of more dire. His short red hair stuck up at angles, and he wore a close-curled red and grey beard. His clothes were wrinkled. People on a flight from SFO to Santa Barbara are usually understated, but he wore a business shirt with a black background and brightly yellow stripes. I looked this shirt up. It was so interesting. I looked it up on the web, and it says about this kind of shirt, the advice is, don't wear it at work unless your company values people who don't fit in. His eyes roved about, and as he walked, he began to talk at high volume. Lost luggage. Where's my flight? A stir ran through the passengers, and we all watched him, feeling that the plot was at last moving ahead. He said some things, like mumbled something about New York. Little zigzags and red flames seemed to be in his pupils. The matron sitting next to me said, I'm going to stay away from him. In some ways, though, he was a kind of union rep for lost passengers and Flying Dutchman, committed to sail yet not arrive, and we were working out how far we wanted to accompany him, how much our disappointments matched his. The counter-attendant was adequate to the challenge. Neither his aloofness nor his air of condescension faltered. Luggage, said the red-haired man, baffled, bewildered, angry. 5 different gates. Supervisor, the attendant announced to the air around him and picked up a phone. The supervisor proved to be a calm, practical black woman. I was looking forward to her performance, and she made a promising start. Hello, she said. You lost my luggage. I've been to 5 gates. I had to take a meeting. I'm not used to flying commercial. Air traffic control, she said. Fog. I'll help you write a letter to air traffic control if you wish. Fog, air traffic control. This was a standard chess opening in which both players advanced their pawns and freed their knights. You moved me to 5 different gates, he repeated. You lost my luggage. The executives are corrupt. Corruption in the United Airlines Board of Directors. He said this was clearly an escalation equivalent to an attack on her bishop. I don't know anything about that, she said. I just talk to people. This was a good moment. You lost my luggage and I had to take a meeting with the president of Sony in these clothes. He reciprocated by opening his world to her. We could see his point. That shirt. She was encouraging. I'm sure you gave a fine account of yourself, sir, and made a good impression on Mr. Sony. It's not Mr. Sony, that's the company, Sony. Well, I'm sure you spoke well for yourself. I mean, you're good at that. It was all right, but still, I fly myself. I have planes. I'm not used to flying commercial. Your plane is on the ground now, and we'll get you out of here. We just have to let the passengers off. His eyes no longer emitted red flames. The zigzag pattern was gone from his pupils. He seemed to be grateful. She had not indicated by even a twitch that having to fly without your own pilot on a small commercial plane accompanied by soothing flight attendants is a first world problem with which some might not sympathize. On the plane, he sat across from me and fell asleep, his eyeglasses tilted on his head, beginning to fall off. He jerked awake and asked, "Is this Santa Barbara?" "No," I said, "we're still in San Francisco." "What's wrong? Why haven't we taken off?" "It's all right. We're in a queue on the tarmac. We're getting there." The woman sitting next to him smiled across at me, and under our benign gaze, he fell back to sleep. In Santa Barbara, he and I stood in the sun together, waiting for our rides. "You fly your own jet?" "I used to have a Citation. I had a 707 too for Europe. I've hardly ever flown commercial. I don't think I like it. It's too confusing. I don't think I'm going to do it again." "You flew the 707? "No, I had pilots for that. Do you still fly?" "I had a stroke a few years ago." His ride appeared, an older Nissan Sentra, a college kid's car. Oh. Well, I have to make up the rest of the story. I haven't got it printed. It's off having an interview with Mr. Sony. Driven by a young man. And anyway, that's pretty much the story. And he got in, and I waved, and this young kid drove off in this very old, beat-up Nissan Sentra. And then my ride came and picked me up, and I whisked off to teach in Santa Barbara, so all was well. What I liked about that story was how much fun it was, like being delayed and having irritable passengers. And this guy had this great, like, his hair was like short and bristling, like there was something, he was cranky just from looking at his hair. So there we are. And I think when I first learned to meditate, I used to try and separate myself from the world because, I think because anything would stick to me, I suppose. And now, I like solitude, and there's something marvelous about it. Late at night, I'm sitting, and the world is beautiful, actually, and I'm alone in the vastness. But I also like being with you all and being with people. That's a nice thing, like in retreat at Taos in an unfamiliar place. It was just great. Well, where are we now? Here. We always seem to be here. Alison, do you want to say anything?
Sure. Let's see. I want to talk a little bit about the transmission document, the silk painting. It's an amazing thing. I've actually never painted one, but I have worked on silk on people's rakasus, and silk has this alarming quality to a painter where you touch the brush to the fabric and really it has its own life. It grabs the ink and then it just does these things with it. It's not like working on paper or on birch panel, which I usually do. So there's a sense of trepidation that one feels when approaching a piece of silk. And John had these massive pieces of silk. They were like, I don't know, 4 by 5 feet or 3 by 4 feet. They're big pieces of silk. And he's got this huge brush that, I don't know, you hold it in your hand and the bristles itself are like this long and this massive. It almost looks like an animal, the way that it's got its own force and life to it. And then he has this jar of black ink, which is on the floor in his space where he's painting. And I don't know, it's another level of risk. Like this can be knocked over or... So he's approaching these pieces of silk, and I could feel it pressing in on his being, on his psyche, on his consciousness, and he's submitting to some kind of immense force that's way beyond him. And this is true anytime an artist will thoroughly enter into a creative process, whether you're writing a poem or playing a piece of music or making a painting. There's a kind of, it's almost like a crushing of the small self that happens. It's really something to undergo. It's like being in a crucible in some way. So I can see this happening to it, and in some way I'm so relieved it's not me. But I'm next to him while this is occurring, and it's a several day process where it takes days just to set up the room, and then there's all kind of avoidance that happens. So you'll notice you get close to it and you just can't bear it, and he'll start watching a football game, or he'll go out in the garden or something, anything, start eating a meal that he doesn't want. The kind of side moves that one makes, and it's all part of the entering into this concentrated state. So finally, it was yesterday when the pieces of silk, the 4 pieces of silk, get painted throughout the day, and then he's laying them out in the living room, these big pieces of silk, and as he's going through it, there's the question of which one belongs to Michelle, which one is her transmission document. And this is such an interesting question. John said something a little bit about vulnerability, that there's a sense of there's risk involved in simply saying what is so. And so there's, from one direction, I'm looking at the 4 pieces of silk, and if in any way my mind is contaminated by what does John think, what might Michelle think, what would be the right choice, what would be the wrong choice, then I actually cannot see which which piece of silk belongs to Michelle. And because I hadn't painted them, it seemed, and just to be able to wait in the open space and it let it appear in my own mind. There's a kind of intimacy that occurs between oneself and what is so. It can be as simple as, what do you want for dinner? It's the same dilemma. Am I contaminated? Is my mind contaminated by what I think my partner wants, or what would not be fattening, or whatever the way we contaminate our own minds? But it was clear to me which of the four. And then the other question was, because John was just still like underwater inside the ocean of making it, it was harder for him to see. And so another way to look at it is, what do the four pieces of silk, what do they want? And to step inside the silk and look from actually underneath the silk through the calligraphy out at Michelle and the transmission. And that's another way to find which piece is hers. So we did this really fun thing this morning where I photographed the four pieces of silk and I sent them off to Tess. And I said, quickly, before thinking good or evil, what is Michelle's document? And within, I think, a minute or two, before I could even type my response to, I was going to add something else, she chooses. And she says, this one. And it was exactly the same one that I had chosen, which was, it's just, I don't know, something tremendously thrilling about the thusness of the world. And this is happening all the time, that you might look at your olive tree and what branch needs to be trimmed. And it's the same question as what to have for dinner and which transmission document belongs to Michelle. So just a marvelous morning in that way. That's it.
Thank you very much. Tess.
Well, it was very clear. That was very interesting. I mean, I looked at all four and I just thought, oh yeah, and there's no question. But somehow I think what I was thinking about has to do both with what you said and with the story you told, John, the traveling story. Because the last night we had a couple friends come up who have two little kids. And so they're in that phase of parenting that's completely underwater, because one's 2.5 and one's 8 months. And you just look at them and I just think, oh, any reason I thought I was tired, if I look at them, I think, no, I'm fine. I'm there. But no excuse. But you were talking in a way, Alison, about how we let the universe be itself. I mean, how we recognize and allow things. And their first child has earned the nickname from some of us as world-conquering child. And if you look at her, you would agree with me. She's just a force of nature. And even at 2.5, her mom will try to say to her, I'm the boss. And she'll say, well, I'm the boss's boss. At 2.5, and she's into being tough, and she's into monsters, and she's into, you can just tell, oh, this scroll, this particular part of the universe has this quality, it's bold and it's uncompromising, and they're worrying about not wanting to squelch her fire. And I said, I don't think that's going to be the problem you're going to have with her. That's but so she didn't come because the previous night they had taken, they're up here seeing family for Thanksgiving, and they had taken a night off to have a date. And apparently when they got home, she said to them, I just need some space. I need space from you. And so they left her home with the grandparents, and they brought their 8-month-old who we had not met. And who we have kind of high ceilings in our house, and the first thing he did when he came in was just put his head up like this. And you can tell immediately upon meeting him, this is a completely different part of the universe. He's soft and he's happy and he's kind of wondrous, and he kept wanting to look up. And the only thing that makes him upset is if you don't share food with him, even though he's only 8 months old. And so we were having this cheese plate, and he wanted all the cheese. And this becomes important for your story, John, because the only thing that is troublesome with him is that apparently this happens with kids where the little stopper on their guts doesn't develop all the way for a while. And so it basically means he spits up all the time. He's just like a fountain of spit up. And mostly what this became for the whole evening was he was a fountain of cheese spit up. And so our couch and our floor and our chairs and our everything started to just smell like French cheese. And this was like your guy with the luggage, because in one way you just think, oh my God, how many gates have we changed and how many, but he was so happy. He was just over the moon, and even his spit up makes him happy. He like slides it around like paint, and he, everything. And there was something, the interfering part of the mind that wants to say this is a problem. When that relaxes, you just think, this is great. You look at his face, you think, this is great. And you can tell they're in that press of not being able to go anywhere or have any nice clothes or have any energy or have anything. But even you could feel just the love they have for this little creature. And then you just think, well, anything worth having in life, you have to give things up for. And they're in the middle of that. And no, it was just touching. So I think that's what I've got. Thank you.
Very good. Michelle Riddle.
Hey, I liked hearing the story of the scroll, so thank you all. I think that for me right now, I don't have a lot I want to say. I'm in a place where I just, as you can see, I have nothing to do. A scroll will appear. I just am feeling things. I'm just letting things settle. And there's like a hubbub around. And I'm just letting things settle. And it's really nice to be here. So thank you.
Very good. John Joseph.
Your story of the beauty of delays and of I don't know, change and inconvenience and stuff made me think of a couple of sessions ago. After a session, I was tasked to go and shop for dinner, and it was getting a little late, and I got to the store, and the store was just, for some reason, incredibly crowded. I don't know if it was holiday or weekend or what, but as soon as I walked in the store, just everything sort of lit up and kind of shone with its own beauty. And here were all the vegetables, and here was all the dry goods, and each of them sort of just beautiful and inviting in their own way. And I found myself so taken with that I began to slow down and get in front, getting back of people like families who were sort of blocking the aisle, and just enjoying being with them and watching them. And so it came time to check out, and I found the absolutely longest line I could, with people with overflowing baskets of groceries. So it would take that much longer, and I could I could just spend time with them and watch things and share with things. So that was a nice story you told about the beauty of just this thusness. Thanks.
Thank you, John. Todd Geist, you got anything you want to say?
Sure. The part when you're talking about getting ready to do the silk scrolls, you said something like getting transferred into that dimension or something like that, which I quite liked. I've been interested in creativity a lot lately because, well, for many reasons, but one of which in my industry, we are being confronted by AI, and so the question of what the AIs can do and can't do, and what the humans are good at is sort of everywhere, and so it's in my daily work and life, and recently I had to give a talk in Antwerp, and this process of figuring out what the talk was going to be and how it was going to go and all that stuff was it's always an interesting process where something just emerges over time and I can't really control it or I can't predict it. I can't predict it in any way in what it's going to be. This sometimes drives the organizers of these conferences kind of nuts because I refuse to give them drafts of my presentation or my talks or anything, and they would much prefer that I would do that ahead of time so they could ensure that I don't know whatever that it would it would go well. But anyway, going through this process is always so interesting because it just sort of finds its way. And I've been listening to some podcasts on this topic, and there was a quote. One of the people interviewed was Elizabeth Gilbert talking about her idea that ideas are actually separate sentient beings that go around looking for a way out into the world. And I was kind of struck by that. And as I went some of these other things they were talking about on this podcast, I started getting into some topics which I found sometimes I might call them a little bit woo, like a little bit too new agey for me. And I noticed that I was getting really sort of annoyed and tight and just closed to these ideas because I don't know, they just didn't have a lot of scientific rigor behind them or something, was bothering me. And at just one point, I just sort of noticed that it was just my mind trying to build up something to rely on, something that I could be permanently in the world, somebody who doesn't believe in things that aren't scientific. And it just sort of seemed kind of silly to hold on to something like this for very, so rigorously. And it was really nice just to kind of, be transported into this other dimension where all these things are fine and, interesting ideas and just much more open and free. And it just gave me this sense of, I don't like sometimes when I'm in these states of like having to produce something or doing something creative, sometimes all I have to do is just get out of the way and let go of whatever idea that I have or belief that I have about myself and who I need to be in this world, and just let the thing appear. And that's really nice. And I kind of felt that here today a little bit with Michael's music and Jordan's music, just pushing me into new dimensions, new, just weird places that are unusual and beautiful and free. That's what practice gives to me, and I'm just so grateful for it. So thank you all for being here.
Amanda, you want to say anything?
Sure. I think just that thing you said in the beginning of the session about you don't have to decorate the inner life. I don't even know what I want to say about it. It's just that's so beautiful. And I was just soaking in that, listening to all the other things you said too, but that just really stuck with me. You don't have to decorate the inner life with that sense of suchness. And I just love that. So thank you.
Thank you. Well done.